And unfortunately, we're already being swarmed by mosquitoes on the outside of the tent. And Tater's just found a booby tick, apparently.
Oh, Matt, don't put that on YouTube!
And today is a really, really good morning because finally, at long last, we get to do something about the tent and my shoes. Because otherwise, this just isn't going to work. Every day we've had to like hack it just a little bit more just to get it to prop up. Still, that thing in the middle is failing. So we are about 2 miles out from the Outfitters, which is High Divide Outfitters run by Dave, who apparently used to run the store at Mount Laguna. By all accounts, it is very heavily stocked, has everything a thru hiker could possibly need, which is good because at the moment we are direly in need in either a tent pole repair, which is going to take some very specialized pieces, or else a new tent. Plus, my shoes really aren't going to last for another 200 miles to get to Butte at this rate. The weather yesterday mostly fizzled. We got rained on a couple of times, but fortunately the thunderstorms held off. The mosquitoes have returned with a vengeance, though. It's not that we have the swarms like we had at Glacier that first night, but they are insistent. And the funny thing is, depending where you get bitten by mosquitoes, sometimes like in the Sierra Nevada, generally the bites on most people go away in, 15 minutes. Other places, like I've been in Joshua Tree when they had a mosquito season, oddly enough, and the bites lasted for days and were itchy. The ones I managed to pick up yesterday while hiking seemed to be the longer lasting, itchier variety. Honestly, the flies and gnats have been a much bigger bother than the mosquitoes lately. And the ticks we're paying attention to, but we've seen 3 of them so far. And there goes Miss. I've only been hiking for 300 miles, and so don't start out every morning with a hiker hobble. So if we can't take care of all of our gear needs here, we are still in range to get to Lincoln or Helena and try and figure something else out. There are new shoes being delivered to Butte. My parents shipped us a box on request, but we're not going to be there for a while. AKA 10 days, which can be a eternity out here. But hey, that does mean there's still a chance I might get hot food in a hotel. We currently have 3 other hikers in our general vicinity, Stash, Hurricane, and a gentleman in an external pack we just saw back behind us. Things have been generally spread out, though, so it's never like we're hitting groups or anything, at least since East Glacier. And honestly, that is how we prefer it. When you're leapfrogging people constantly, that's a little more stressful. We prefer just to zone out and feel like we're out here all alone. Anecdotally, from those I've talked to, the level of experience out here, as expected, is higher. A lot of people have AT, PCT, and this is their Triple Crown attempt like me. I did run into one person where this was their first thru hike, which, hell of a one to bite off going southbound on the CDT. I kind of suspected there because they had a solar panel on the back of their pack, and everybody else I know has gone away from those because they really aren't very efficient when you're moving in and out of trees, etc. Which is really a bummer because I love solar power as like a concept. We live off of it in the van now between our power stations and our 100-watt panel. But any of the ones out here, they tend to only deliver the advertised power if you can leave them out in the sun at the correct angle. So like here where we're coming in out of the shade, that just doesn't work. And if you do the math, the amount of time it takes to fully charge a cell phone like an iPhone or to charge one of the batteries is pretty high. And you pretty much also have to have a battery because the iPhone type cell phones don't charge well off voltage going up and down. Taters is currently carrying a 20K battery. I am carrying a 20K battery plus a 10K battery because with all the video editing and my heavy use of audiobooks, I tend to use a little more power. That can get me through about 10 days before I really start running dry. And because I have the proper wall charger, which is usually the key, the 20K battery I have can recharge fully in 4 to 5 hours. So you can imagine if I'm not discharging all the way, if I'm just going every 4 or 5 days, we can stop to eat, resupply, and usually be completely topped off. The previous two trails I got away with just the 20K battery, but AT, PCT both have a lot more towns. I mean, here we have towns, but they require hitches and they take time, so we've skipped a number of stops like Augusta, Lincoln, etc. Our food carriers are working out as somewhere between 4 to 6 days. And sometimes when you get a resupply, it's an area that doesn't have power. Hence why I need to have enough power to get through more than one stop. We have been seeing more of these markers. We're still having to check the map pretty much constantly during the day. And quite often, the CDT is not the most heavily used option at any given junction. And welcome to High Divide Outfitters. And here on this spot, Blondie set up her very first hiking pole tent and was very unhappy. You all think she's just a happy, giggly person because you see her reacting to things I say. You don't see what happens when the cameras are off and the internet is a little frustrating. I mean, I got my head ripped off and I wasn't even responsible for the internet. And then we had to try and set up this pole tent, which was pretty much our only good option, and that wasn't good. Oh yeah, now you're all happy and giggly. Why do they get the best part of you? And then she fell off the trail and broke her leg. So the deal with that place and why we have a big jump in the video here is he asked that no photos or video be taken on the premises. So that stop was the stop that allowed us to not have to blow a day going into Helena or one of the big towns. Due to gear failure, we needed a new tent, new shoes, new socks, and then a variety of food items. We ended up spending about 820 bucks total, but out of that, 500 or so was the gear, basically taking the cheapest options that we had that would meet our needs, and then remainder was a 5-day food carry for 2 people from what was on offer. We were also able to do laundry. He had a couple of buckets and some soap, and then a clothesline. So big improvement on where they were. Not quite machine dry. And he had showers. I took one, Jen didn't. It was basically a solar shower, and it was pretty cold. It was the equivalent of jumping into your average Sierra Lake, pretty much, with a little bar of soap. The Ultras that failed on me after about 250 miles, that will be under warranty. So we have pictures documenting the issues, and we ended up buying a new pair. The pictures of the old pair are usually enough where they will warranty them for us while we're on trail without us having to send the old ones in. And I had a new pair of shoes waiting for me in Butte in another 200 miles or so. Unfortunately, those have already been sent. So plan will be get those, send them ahead, probably around mile 700 to 800-ish. I did get really excited when we walked in there because he said he had a supply of Ultra Lone Peak 2.0s. And if you're not aware, the early Lone Peaks, while they were still made by Ultra, had a reputation for better quality, lasting longer. I had a pair of, I think, 2.5s that got me through 700 miles before failing. In general, I get about 500 miles out of mine. At that point, the sole's starting to collapse. You can see the foam compressing, and sometimes the sides are splitting. The modern quality issues are generally that the sides will sometimes start to split after only about 200 miles. We ended up being there from about 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Part of that where there were 2 other couples there, so we had to kind of wait and phase in and out. And part of it was when we realized we weren't going to be able to fix the tiger wall pole with what was there, and we needed to buy something, we did our due diligence and set up the trekking pole tent outside, since Taters had never used one of those. Our alternative was going to be a hitch into Helena, which would have been $100 plus hotel room, plus hot food, etc. And we would have had to go around and try and find, did they have, a 3-person Hornet or something like that. And now we have 5 heavy days of food on our back, which will get us out to Butte, where Taters is finally relenting and I get an actual hotel room with a shower and hopefully decent internet, because I am still struggling to get any episodes up here. And the other reason why we took so long was because we had to fully charge our batteries, which were depleted in the 10-ish days since leaving East Glacier. And this section is continuing the trend of not having many water sources. So we've got about a 9-mile dry carry here. Plan is to do that and then see what time of day it is. It'll probably be pretty close when we're ready to stop in that general vicinity. Drink as much as we can. And we're going to be doing this for at least a couple more days before we get back to reasonable water carries. And now we got a fire to look out. We only have a lot of flies. We only have about 6 more miles until the water source where we're probably going to camp. And it's more of this just up and down. Seem to be less in the mountains and more in wide open areas. How can you tell that they rent out this fire lookout on the top of a mountain for money? They build a porta potty. So we couldn't get into the tower, but Taters wanted to come up here and see what the view from a hole like 30 feet up is. Looks pretty much like the view from 30 feet down.
Hey, towers are cool, okay? And I have fond memories of the AT.
The AT actually has these massive towers. I don't know how high some of those were, but they're really damn high. They're like 3 times as high as this. We were just commenting how this feels a lot more AT-like. Little mountains, trees, occasional balds. We are going through kind of a more accessible area, so we're running into people. Those nice folks at least offered us water. And as expected, we are to the 9-mile water source, and there are people here because this is about the best option unless you want to carry a whole hell of a lot of water up that, and still need about 2 liters for tomorrow probably. And stop us if you've heard this before, but we're wandering around trying to find a flat place to camp. This time 0.4 off trail because of water. And the fun part of setting up a new tent, especially when you're going from an easy freestanding to a hiking pole tent, is of course figuring out how all the adjustments work.
We went about half a mile off the trail to get some water for tonight. And once we got down to this meadow, Matt's campsite senses started tingling. Sure enough, there's a somewhat developed packer camp down here. And pretty sure no one else is going to end up joining us way down here. So we have our cozy little niche in the trees. And we're testing out our new tent. Took us a little while to set up the new tent because there's a lot of adjustment points to get used to. But we are both really loving the way it looks and kind of the airy feel, and excited to settle in for the night. Home sweet home for the night.